So, should men have female friends? More specifically, should married men have friends who are ladies? And before you jump into a marriage, man, how much does it matter about the debt of your future spouse?
Hmm.
Is it okay? Is it a no go? Or is it just something y'all just gonna work through? These are two questions that we are going to discuss today on this episode of the Man to Man podcast. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to this podcast. We're all about helping men honor God in every single part of their lives. My name is James. This is your other host, Raph Peters. We are here today, hopefully, finishing up a series we've been starting. I ain't trying to rush it, honestly. I'm not trying to rush it because this has been good. It's been a lot of good stuff. I've been getting a lot of feedback from people who've been watching it, friends and family and stuff like that, man. And so I'm just happy about what God is doing, man. So like I said, we're in the middle of a series or maybe at the end of a series titled Questions You Should Be Asking Before You Get Married. This whole series, these last maybe what, 4 videos, last 4 or 5 videos,
Yeah.
is all about focusing, talking to young men out there, right? The ones who are about to get married soon. You think about popping the question, or maybe you hopped into marriage and you only been in this thing for about a year or two. These are good questions for you and your wife or your future wife to talk about, man. Before you jump into it, man, how you doing today? You good?
Man, we good. It's Friday, baby. We doing great. Enjoying this weather. It ain't hot, it ain't cold. It's just right.
Yeah, it's nice here in Mississippi too.
Yeah.
So you out there in Houston, man. H-Town get hot,
Yeah.
huh?
It do get hot. I mean, but I is it the same? It's kind of the same climate. It might
Is,
get a little hotter over here, but yeah,
is it humid there?
it's humid. It's
Yeah,
humid. So similar context, but maybe a little the temps be a little higher, just a little bit. It's
that
Texas.
heat, man. That heat stick to you when that humidity hits you.
Yee. Sure
And
be
so,
wet.
man, yeah, just be God, just be God. All right, man.
Yeah.
But dude, yeah, we're gonna continue in the series. We're gonna hop right into it. Last week we stopped. Oh man, my notes disappeared. What we talk about last week? We were touching on a couple things last week. My notes just disappeared. Let me see. Oh yeah. Um. Yes. So we talked about past relationships. Um. And then we talked about, I think, past relationships we just stayed on, right?
Yeah,
We were
no
supposed to
facts.
talk about like 5 different things.
Facts. Facts.
So we talked about past relationships. We talked about them exes. We talked about how that looks.
Ooh,
Um,
Lord.
and so if you missed that episode, it was a good episode, man. Just
Yeah.
go, if you're on YouTube, just go down to the last video under live. You'll see that. If you're a part of the Facebook group, it is down there as well. It was a good conversation. Obviously, we didn't get done with it, so we're gonna finish
Crazy.
finish the second part of that today. But yeah, let's hop into it, man. We're looking into the idea of should married men specifically, have female friends. And so we touched on it just like a little bit last week, just a little bit last week. We touched on it, man. But what do you, just generally, just overall, before we jump into like the specifics, what are your thoughts?
Put
What are your
me in the fire right
put you
in.
right in it, man? I can start. You know, we can just go. You want to go to
What
the specifics
what
first?
I mean, let me hear your general thoughts and then I'll share mine because I think we're in agreement with
All
where
right,
we
so I
land.
think I think the general thought as a man, if we're talking specifically a married man having female friends, I I would say naturally, I would say no, right?
Yeah. Right.
Um, I would just say no, and there I was gonna say but there ain't no but. I would say no. Well, you'll
That's the
explain.
problem.
I'll explain. That's a problem, right? I'll explain a little bit more, but
Yeah.
I just think, man, my first question is why, right? And that
Yeah.
may be because I just don't have close female friends like that personally right now.
Yeah.
I had one in middle school, had plenty of friends that I knew from church and from school and stuff like that. But as
Yeah.
far as having a close female friend who I talk to, who I hang out with, um, I just don't think that's a good move, especially if I
Right.
got a wife at home who I
Right.
can do all that stuff with, two plus more,
Come on
and
now.
be
Come on.
on it and be
Yeah.
legal, right?
Yeah.
According to
Right.
God standards. And so that's just me off the top of my head. I just say it's a no for me, and I'll explain here in a little bit why. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ultimate answer we land in the same place, and that's no. And for good reason, right? We know ourselves. Is it okay? I think it just all depends on the nature of the relationship and how it's defined. If it is to happen, like female friendship, obviously it's not sinful, but it can lead to certain things. So just basing it on the nature, that's what I would say. So I would say for myself, it's a no, and it's a no for good reason. I know myself, but for other men, we'll have to flesh that out a bit. It could potentially be a yes, but I think it would be based on the nature of the relationship, how it's defined, and also the spouse.
Yeah.
So for myself, no, not at all. We're not even thinking about it. But for somebody else, potentially, but we need to talk about it. And there are other implications too that I think need to be thought through if a person is going to say yes. There needs to be a lot of rails, a lot of boundaries, a lot of assessment with the spouse, reassessment with the spouse. She may say yes one day, and then the next day, I don't know if I like this person.
So
And
y'all were laughing like real good the other day. We was
I,
all hanging out. Like y'all had
yeah,
an inside joke that I didn't know. Like
wasn't even funny. Tell me
well, it
about
wasn't
this
even that
joke.
funny, man. Y'all were laughing
Yeah,
real hard though.
yeah,
Like
something going on. Something going on. Yeah. So I mean, I think all those elements should be considered, but yeah, we probably gonna hit on it. So let's
yeah,
let's
we're
just
gonna
go
touch on it.
ahead.
And so before we dive into like, I mean, we already given y'all our answers. And if you're watching this video, whether you're watching it live or you're watching on the replay, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think about this. Is it a no-go? Is it okay? Are we just being just super real religious, pastors, and you're just being unnecessary and unrealistic, have things change in the culture? Is that
Yeah.
just are we just old school? Is that what
Are
it
we
is?
sexist? Are we sexist,
Are
bro?
we? What are we? What are we? Let us know in the comments whether you watch this on the replay or not, and then we'll interact with that for those of you who are going to join us live. But there are a couple of things I want to identify when we're talking about friendships. Is I want to identify um, some definitions. Now, some of this are definitions that are like just stuff I made up. And then
Mhm.
there are other ones that are, I guess we can all just kind of agree on, right? And so, first definition is an associate, right? I would identify an associate. These are different levels of relationships. Specifically, a married man has with a woman is an associate. This is someone they just know, right? This is someone who they maybe y'all live in the same town. You're aware of her. You know her name. She hasn't done anything to you for you to be mean to her, vice versa. Y'all ain't really hung out. Maybe y'all were like in class, like back in high
Yeah.
school or something like that. You know
Yeah.
who she is. You know her name, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Literally an associate could be somebody
right.
you work with.
Yeah, it's just somebody
Yeah.
somebody you just work with or something like
Yeah.
that, right? And so
Yeah.
it's just somebody who's just there, right? You nice to him. It's like, but that's it. It's it.
Yeah.
Like it ain't
Yeah.
too much more than that. All right. Then we move to what I like to call the friendlies, right?
Uh-oh.
The friendlies, I don't know. Uh-oh. No, I
Uh-oh.
need the thumbs up. All this stuff. Anyway. All right. The
No, that might be your
friendlies.
wife saying that it ain't okay.
I think it does like gestures now. We're getting distracted now. Let me see.
Yeah.
Uh, no,
Oh,
anyway.
uh,
Yeah, it was doing that during the Zoom call the other day. All right, anyway, I get distracted. Squirrel, right? The next thing is what I like to call the friendlies. These are people, man, like I would I would even argue you have to be nice to them, right?
yeah.
So like the people like you work with, the people who you have to like have meetings with, the people who are maybe part of a parent I can't think of the word what's the thing the parents do to help the schools. There it is. Yes.
PTA, PTO, something like
PTA,
that.
PTO, all the kind of
Yeah, yeah,
stuff. They're
yeah,
part of your kids' team. They're on the same team or something like that. So
yeah.
you gotta be friendly with these people. And maybe even there's some people who are I guess like who you go to church with, who you see as members. For us as pastors, it's a little bit different, right? We can't just,
Hmm.
hey, how you doing? All right, bye. You know,
Right,
you have
right,
to
right,
talk
right.
to people. But it's people you kind of like have to be nice to, right?
Yeah.
So those what I like to call the friendlies. You may strike up a conversation with them, but you're not doing it with any intent of building just a solid relationship. And then I have what I like to call just friends. Now these are people who you intentionally have a relationship with, who you talk to more than an associate, more than a friendly. Maybe these are people who are like part of your small group at church, or maybe like they're your kid's best friend or
Yeah.
whatever, parent or mom or whatever. Like I said again, maybe you work with them and then y'all are on a team together, y'all work on projects and different things together.
Yeah.
But y'all have built some type of relationship that's like, okay, cool, we friends, right? It's more than just
Yeah.
like we friends on Facebook. Like we talk a lot, uh more than whatever, because either we have to or we choose to, right? So those are
Right.
friends. And then we have our close friends, and this is where this is where the problem comes
Gotta draw the
mostly
line.
for me, right?
Yeah.
Because these are people that you talk to, I would say, multiple times a week, right? Close friends, these are people who you hang out with, who you go out to lunch with, like who you
Yeah.
eat dinner with. um y'all kids hang out, so y'all hanging out at each other's houses. um and then a close friend, this is just in general, it's just somebody you tell things to, people who know secrets, people who know stuff about you that other people don't know, right?
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
this definition is where, like, for me as a married man, like
Hmm.
I don't have any close friends that are females. I just
Right.
don't, who are women. I just don't. Me personally, I don't think it's necessary, right?
Right.
I I there are a lot of things I tell my wife everything, right? I'm hanging out with my wife. We go out to eat. We do that kind of stuff. I don't need that
That's your
personally
close friend.
from,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my close friend. I don't need that
Yeah.
from a woman. I don't need that
Yeah.
from a woman. Like
Yeah.
I want more guys and more men, more godly men who I can hang out with, who I can tell stuff to, who I can go out with and go play sports with, go play go fishing, golfing, and go out to eat and do kind of stuff, go out Buffalo Wild Wings or something like that. Like
Yeah.
I want that to be my guys, that we just going out like, babe, hey, we and the guys gonna hang out tonight. You know what I'm saying? We close like that. But me being like, yo, babe, me and me and old girl finna go hang out at B Dubs. Like I'll holler at you when I get back.
Nah, dog. If
Let's
wife
just
be
let's
okay
just
with
stay right.
that, all
Let's
right,
just
baby,
say
go ahead.
I don't know, man. I just don't know if that's the thing, man.
Nah, it's
So
not.
based off
Yeah.
of those definitions, man, where do you kind of draw your line, right? I guess my line starts at friend, but where do you kind of draw your line between an associate, a friendly, a friend, and then a close friend?
Yeah, I think the same for me. And also to add, I know if there is any female friend or close to a friend that I have, it would be my wife's friends. And I don't just have a personal relationship with them. It's just, hey, really, it's because of proximity of your husband and me and your husband are friends and we hang out together. We all
Yeah,
hang out together. It's not like a solo situation, but it's like, yeah, y'all the homies. And y'all the homies because y'all my wife's homie, but we ain't just homies. You know what I mean? It's different. Like if we didn't have relationship, with each other's spouses. And my wife's friends, their husbands are my friends. So it's never been, like a close relationship type of thing. But if it was friendship, it was that. It was, hey, we talk about marriage together. We laugh at the same things together. We had a group called Couple of Laughs, and we all, were doing pranks and stuff on each other's spouses. But the spouse was always connected. There aren't any individual conversations happening unless it's like TikTok reels or something like that. But past that, we not hanging out. And I think again, it goes back to the nature of myself. I think unfortunately, it really is like, and maybe I want to talk about this later, but I really feel like it's a discernment and wisdom call. Like you have to not just think about yourself, but you also have to think about the spouse. And as a pastor, I think even as a believer, so I don't think it's just for spouses, you have to think about the bride of Christ. And
mhm,
so it's like, how does this represent the bride of Christ? Like it's funny. It's like, I don't think anything of this relationship, or at least that's what somebody could say about, having female friends. But, scripture talks about, hey, don't let your good be evil spoken of. Like, there are ways that people can manipulate and say things, and you just don't want to give people the room or the space or time to do that,
Right.
especially if it means destroying your witness. It's
Mhm.
like, I can't trust he out here, going on Starbucks dates with other women. It's like and I'm like, I'm a pastor, so if I am, for me, it's like I'm gonna be in public spaces. We're not about to be, you know, at the office, just me, you. No, we're making sure we've got boundaries and guardrails around that. But yeah, I think that's the case. Like, it's a wisdom and discernment call, and what's the real issue is our self control and our hypersexualized society and culture. Like, because those two things remain an issue, like, we should always ask the question, like you said, why? Like, why do I want this? Like, what are my desires? Like, what are my thoughts? What are my struggles? And what are the motives potentially of this other person? Like, I might be totally blind. And it's funny, men tend to be blind sometimes, foolishly blind. Like, yeah, but the spouse, she be like, or wifey be like, she feeling you. You like, nah, she ain't feeling me. But it's because you're not feeling them. It's like,
Right.
wifey see something that you don't, and you need to give room to that. So I think that that's the thing, man. But yeah. I think it's a wisdom and discernment call, and it's not to say that having a female friend is sinful, but I think it can lead that way. And so
Mhm.
for us, it's like, do we even want to get close to the line? And it's like, if I love God and I love my spouse, I don't even want to get close to the line. I mean, sure, we can make room if we want, but at what expense, at what cost is it going to cost me to have this relationship? I'd rather just not even get into that and say, nah, fam, I'm good. I got everything I need over here, and we were talking about this earlier. It was before I even got married. We were dating and I dropped everybody. I'm like, nah, we ain't I ain't got time. Like, you the best friend now.
Yeah.
No other friends.
Yeah.
I'm willing to let go of all of this to spend that. And I think too, bro, the thought process is like, it's not just a you call. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna say yes to something like that, you gotta talk to your spouse and they've got to be comfortable with it. It can't just
Yeah.
be and I know guys who've done this. It's just like, I've always had lady friends, and you just gonna have to be okay with it. Nah, Joker, that's not how we rock.
Mhm. Yeah.
You gotta you got to consult with the wife, and you got to be willing to let go of those things if she's not comfortable. It's not worth it, bro. Like, you're just gonna cause more problems in the future, if you continue that. So yeah, I said a lot, but I think that's where I land, bro. I think it's definitely important, and I'm drawing the line at friend. I'm not going past that. We're not talking about close friend, intimate friend, definitely not intimate friend for sure.
Right.
But yeah, your friends, friendly. Yeah, I don't even like the word friendly. Like, ain't no friendly. You ain't about to be friendly with somebody else. And I think men, they need to think about the other. Like, how would you feel if your wife was out here having dates with dudes, going to Starbucks, and it's like a friendship hangout? Nah, we ain't about to do that. We
Yeah.
ain't about to do that.
Nah,
Nah,
nah, bruh.
that ain't cool.
Go ahead, give me a caramel macchiato as well. I'm gonna sit
Yeah,
right
yeah,
here with
we
y'all. Y'all
together.
good? Yeah, we
Yeah.
get it's all three of us. We good.
Hey,
Matter
actually,
of
I'm
fact,
gonna
I'll
need
pay
you.
for everybody.
I pay for everybody, and then I need you to leave. We about to have a conversation. Like, hey, you had your little 5 minutes. Yeah, that's cool. You gotta go.
All right, that's good, man.
But
And
yeah,
we talked last week on some things. We talked about my friend who had a bunch of lady friends before when he was dating, and before the engagement was one of the requirements for him from his future wife. Like, yo, you're gonna have to cut all the friends off. You got bad history, you got bad blood, bro. You're gonna have to cut them all off, man.
yeah.
And one thing you were talking about men not being aware. I mean,
Mhm.
I think sometimes we aren't. I think sometimes we can be clueless, but then I think sometimes we can be like kind of in our back of our mind, like wishing or
Yep.
thinking or
Yep.
being tempted that hey, something may happen, so I'm gonna hold on to this. And like I said, I don't trust the flesh. I don't trust me. I don't trust my flesh, and so I want to
Come on.
make sure I'm cutting it off. But it was a story, man. One of my mentors told me, and this dude's business guy, and he's just doing his thing, right? And
Yeah.
so he's owning this business, and part of what he does, he has a lot of young ladies that come through their business. It's just naturally what the business attracts, right? And
Yeah.
so he's man of God or whatever. He not really worried about this, whatever. And one of the young ladies at one point started to bring him like food, like
Yeah.
cakes and stuff like that. The homeboy just eating it up. He was just like, "Oh man, appreciate it." Like, "Oh, man, I wasn't hungry, I wasn't hungry, so I'm just eating and stuff like that and whatever." And so anyway, one time, man, his wife was just like, it's like, "Man, like, where you get that from?" "Oh yeah, such and such brought it." And she was like, "Don't you eat nothing else from her?" He was like, "What you talking about?
What you mean?
What you mean?" He was like, "Don't you eat nothing else from her.
Oh,
Anything else she give you, throw it away." Right?
yeah.
And that whole idea of through a way to a man's heart is through his stomach kind of thing
Mhm.
was just like
Yep.
that. And he was like, "Bruh." He was just like, man, he said, I started to recognize stuff and started to think about it. He was like, "Man, I
Yeah.
was liking that. I was liking that attention. I was, man." He said, "Bruh, well, I was finna slip up, bruh." He was like, "My wife said,
That's hilarious.
don't you eat another thing from her." She was just cooking, just bringing them food, man. And he had to realize, like, yo, that
Yeah.
wasn't cool, man. And
Yeah.
so it's just like that, man. You just have to have those. You have to be aware. You have to have those boundaries set up. But I go back to like, what's the point of the relationship, right?
Yeah.
As a man who is married, what is the point of having a female close friend? Like, I just think about.
I need to have better perspective for my wife. That's what I'm sure it needs
No,
needs to be.
no, no. Watch the YouTube video. I think one thing that we have to do is to make sure that our relationship with our wives is strong, man. But in those relationships with other women, man, I don't know, man. I just
Oh,
I
man.
just don't see
Hey,
the point, man. I just
on
don't
a real tip
but
though, I think as we think about this conversation, I think through biblically, like I'm like, man, if I desire this relationship and this other person desires this relationship, and we want friends that are the opposite sex as us, what it really could communicate is that there's something gone wrong as far as discipleship and even my views of what the Lord is calling me to. Right. So, like you read scripture, it talks about men training up and discipling younger men, or even this idea of having mentors and different things like that. And then for the women, it's the same thing. Like there are friendships that we should naturally have for the benefit of our maturation, for us growing in the Lord. And I think it communicates that something is off. Like it's showing me that something's either off in her on her side or on my side, where I don't have these healthy relationships. Maybe it's like you just can't have a relationship with a woman. Well, why is that? Like let's get down to like what's going on there. Like is there something that you need to get right vertically, and your vertical relationship is hindering your horizontal relationships? Or is there like something that you experience growing up and you need to get that right too? Because like you need healthy relationships with other like people of the same sex as you. Like that shows like there's some health there. So I
yeah,
also communicates a level of unhealth. Like, why can't you have a relationship with another man? Like, brother, like what's going on? Like what needs to be fixed there, what experiences you had, what things are happening spiritually. I think it would tell me a lot about a person if they really were pushing this idea of having a friend that's the opposite sex. It's like, okay, what's going on? It's something happening. And I mean, I think if we're talking about honoring the Lord in every single aspect, it's like, okay, what's deficient in my life and why is it deficient, and how can the Lord fix this? So, let me get some help. Let me get some guys that can speak into my life in the way that I'm looking for, from this one. I've heard all the excuses from guys. It's like some guys it's just like, I can't be friends with another guy because it just feels a certain way. And, I'm not, I'm straight, it's like, bro, what? hey, you just the masculinity piece. You need to walk like you just not comfortable, bro. Like
Yeah.
if we read the scriptures, Jonathan and David, they, some people will look at that and be like questioning their relationship, and it's like,
Right.
no,
Right. Right.
that's what real friendship looks like. And because of our society, we have allowed it to almost just destroy this idea of close friendship and what it's actually supposed to look like. And it's like, man, we want to say no diddy to everything, but that ain't a no diddy moment. Like I can say I love you and not have an attraction for you, but unfortunately, everything is a pause moment, and it's like, nah, like you just need to grow up. That's the thing. You just need to grow
Bro,
up.
did you just say no, did he?
No diddy. Hey, come on. It's there, bro. It's the
You just gotta
you
tell him
do
no.
you just gotta tell them no. Hey, right. You just gotta tell them no, like for sure.
Man, dude, you
But
stupid.
but
So bad. Here's here's the thing, man.
uh,
Like I said, I think, like you said, I think men are afraid of a good relationship with another man because of that type of thing. And it may
yeah,
be some men out there who may have I've talked to so many guys man over the years. They may have felt like they had those feelings, like they had
yeah,
same-sex attraction at some point in their life, and just because they had a thought or because they had that man, they try to run away from those type of relationships because it's like, oh man, I don't want to turn turn that way, right? I don't want to become a guy who likes guys, right?
yeah,
When the reality of it is, man, it's just like, man, we need healthy relationships with other men.
yeah,
And if you have a past where maybe you had those thoughts and stuff like that, that doesn't mean that's who you were, right?
yeah,
We have a lot of intrusive thoughts that the enemy throws our way so much in our lives that we don't necessarily have to identify with, we don't have to take hold of. And so that's a whole nother subject, man. I don't even know we'll
yeah,
talk about that for real, but we
yeah,
might. But
yeah,
healthy relationships with another man, dude, is just it can be weird, right? I'm learning, like, even recently, like, to I'm starting to get friends who are guys who I tell, like, bro, I love you, man. Like,
yeah,
dude, I really care about you, man. Appreciate you, bro.
yeah.
And at first it was kind of weird because it's just like, the only man I ever told I love him was my
My dad.
dad,
Yeah,
right? And then
yeah.
uh, it's just like,
And
like,
struggled to say that.
it's just weird. But
Yeah,
like, when you understand the importance of brotherly love and people who truly care for you, for where
yeah,
you are and who you are, like, I think that's something every man has to work through. I honestly
yeah,
do.
yeah,
Because I think on the other side of that are healthy relationships from men who who can love you, who can support you. And when you're going through your tough times, man, you have somebody on your side, somebody who cares for you, who has been there with you consistently, man. And I don't think we have to run away from that, man, or run to a female relationship because, hey, it's more natural to tell a woman that you love her. It's just like, man, I don't know. It's not a good thing. I want to play devil's advocate, man. I wanted to ask you a question. So what do you say to those men who come to you and be like, Pastor, now let me tell you, brother, me and sister such and such been friends since we
mm,
was in since we was kids. All right. Our parents, man, we grew up together. We've been friends, man. We didn't get married, but we've been friends for a long time, and we want to continue to be friends in our lives, even though I'm married to somebody else, man. What do you say to a guy who says that man, I've already had this previous relationship with this woman, man. Hey, what's up
yeah,
with that?
yeah. Two things. Does it honor God? Does it honor your spouse?
Mm,
Can you answer that well? And you might say, "Oh yeah, it honors my spouse because I say so." But what does your spouse say? How
mm,
comfortable is she? And at the end of the day, like you gotta go back to those things. Like I think we tend to go off of our experience and what we want and what we desire. And when we follow Jesus, we have to let go of all of that. And so as a pastor, that's where I'm first going to go. And then I'm going to say, hey, you also have to check your motives. And it sounds pretty selfish, and marriage is pretty selfless. So you
mm.
need to die. And so
Yeah,
this still can't work. And hopefully if I'm walking with that brother and I know some things, I can speak into it and say, man, I just don't think that that's a wise decision.
yeah,
I think as a man, you're gonna have to let go of this. You're gonna have to, sacrifice this for the benefit of the bride of Christ and your bride. And
yeah.
so, brother, you can't. I'm sorry. I know you probably want to, but I mean, you can, y'all can say, hey, in the
Right.
context of you, if she goes to church with you, y'all together, like y'all want to talk before service, have a little chop up, but
Yeah.
you know,
Y'all can be friendly.
yeah, that's
Right.
that's the extent.
Yeah.
We're not
I
going
just
past that.
I just know for me, man, when I was dating my wife, it was I was taking a class and there was a woman, young lady in the class with me. She was cool, man. Like we
Mhm.
were in class. I think we got partnered up in a group. It was like a class focused on like I think like education or whatever. So naturally there'll be other women in that class. And so she went to church with us. I went to the same school with her, had the same class as her, and we were running projects, doing projects together. And so we were spending time together, and I just thought she was cool, right?
Yeah.
And so um I remember clearly thinking to myself, man, like she was attractive to me, right? And I
Hmm.
remember like laughing and joking with her at church. And then my mother-in-law said something to my wife. And so my wife, well, girlfriend at the time, uh, fiance probably at the time,
Yeah.
man, she came up and we were talking about it. And like she was like, nah, bruh. And it was a whole ordeal, like, bruh, that nah. And like she was asking me specific questions. And so I had to fess up to how I felt and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I was like, bruh, nope, never again. Never again in my life, bruh, because I was
Yeah.
just like, man, this isn't worth it. This is not
Yeah.
worth what I know for sure I have just because she's cool or whatever, just cool to talk to or whatever. I was like, nah, bro. And we cut that
Can't
off
do it.
real quick. Cut that off
Yeah.
real quick. And wifey and mama law, bro, they was just like,
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah.
uh, and
Yeah.
I was just like, nope, never again, man. And so
Yeah.
part of that process, like I said, when we were engaged and all that kind of stuff, man, we talked about it last week, man. I went through cutting off people from Facebook, cutting off people in real life that I felt was just unnecessary relationships, people I knew that liked me, but I didn't really like them. Like all of
Yeah.
that had to be just chop, 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 man, because I understood like I don't want anything to take away or to
Hmm.
jeopardize my future relationship with this woman I know for sure God has called me to marry,
Yeah.
man. And
Yeah.
it wasn't tough at all. Like it was
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
clear what I needed to do, man, and I did it. And some guys may fight that and just be like, man, it's just a friend, man. Like it's just a friend. I just, I just, it's just, no,
Can't do it.
nope,
Yeah.
can't do it, bro. Let
Yeah.
it
And I
go,
mean, I think
let
it
it
all,
go.
like, just on the discipleship piece again, like, I just think that, what it may show is that there's some areas that you and your wife are lacking that y'all need to work on. And you need to do the work as far as like intimacy, knowing your wife.
Mm,
Also, like sharing, it's like, well, I feel like I can't share that with my wife. And I can, well, you need to do some work, brother. There's some ways in which you need to learn how to either to share these things or get good at sharing these things. Y'all need to go to counseling or like y'all need to talk to somebody. Y'all need to go to your like there are a lot of things that it'll reveal. And I just don't think people are trying to do that work. They want the things that are easier. Well, it's just easier for me to talk to her as opposed to talk to my wife. Well, you need to just do the work and just know that it ain't gonna be easy. Marriage ain't
yeah.
easy. And
Nope.
so, and I think, man, that's the temptation, to always look at what's easy and the thing that is most appealing and doesn't require as much work. And I think whenever that is the thing, you not too far from sin. It's like anytime, it's like, oh, well, it's just easy for me to get on my phone as opposed to work through some of these things that I can't, I can control this as opposed to, having to be in this space where I can't control. It's like, no, like that's just how it's set up. Like the Lord, we need God. And and the spouse is the help me, so the
Yeah.
spouse is there to help. And so you need to press into that relationship as opposed to trying to find help outside of the marital relationship. So yeah, man, I just think that there are things that show healthy relationship too, where it's like if I can't have a relationship with another man and I feel like I have to have a relationship with another woman, then it's exposing there's something deficient in my relationship with God, which is ultimately playing out in my relationship with others.
Yeah.
Like, what is the like? How do I view God, and what does that speak about how I engage with other people? Because it may actually be saying something.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think we need to do the work of trying to figure that out, man. So yeah, nah, it's a no for me. It's a no
Yeah,
for me,
man.
but for reason, and I think for my benefit and my spouse's benefit,
Yeah.
and the Lord, for
And
the
the Lord.
benefit of His kingdom.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. I would say this, man, as we close this part, man, is that the devil is gonna find any way he can to destroy marriage, man, because he understands that it's
yeah,
one of the
yeah,
most solid institutions that God has created. There's so many things that come out of marriage that are just blessed by God. And so if the devil can find a way
yeah,
in any way possible, and this, I mean, this isn't the only category. The only way God can sneak into a marriage, I mean,
facts.
the devil can sneak into a marriage. But I would say as we close this section, man, is like you don't want to create any unnecessary temptation. And that goes
Yeah,
for so much in your life, right?
yeah,
Avoid temptation at all costs. And to uh, me being a man who likes women, having another woman other than my wife
yeah.
who I can confide in, who I can talk to, who I am exposing myself to, like my heart and stuff to, that just ain't gonna play out well, unless you trying to get it to play out well in the wrong way. So yeah,
Hey, you gonna be exposing, but it ain't gonna be
it's
the
gonna
right
be
exposure.
it's gonna be the wrong kind, and then you're gonna be
Hey,
exposed out the
it's
house,
trouble.
kicked
It's
out.
trouble. Bro, yeah, yeah. I think that's real, and I think it. So this is the thing. Like, just to add to your point about the ways in which the devil, the enemy, desires to destroy marriages. He'll do it so subtly, and you won't
So slick,
even realize
so
it.
slick.
You'll get to the point where you are there, and it's like all of these moments of really compromise has led me to this point. All of these moments of me not seeing, I wasn't alert. I wasn't aware of how the enemy was desiring to swift me like wheat, and now I'm unfortunately in this situation. Too many men have that story where it's like, if I just would have cut this off on the front end, you know, we wouldn't be having this problem. If I just would have
Right.
gouged out my eyes and cut the hand here, we wouldn't have had this. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
but we don't be
Yeah,
trying
we
to.
like we talked about before in this podcast, man. We like to play with fire. We like to, and that would
Mm,
goes to any sin, any temptation, man. We like to see as just human beings, especially as Christ followers, man. We like to see how close we can get to the fire without getting burnt.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. It's like putting fire in your lap and expecting and wonder why your pants on fire. That's just it's just like, bro, ain't gonna work. All right, man. So let's move on to the last subject.
Put it in reverse,
Let's
Dad.
move on to the put it in reverse. Uh
Oh
Oh
man.
man, too, bro. Ooh,
We
we
can't do
live,
that with
y'all.
this one.
There
We
we go.
live. Hey,
Hey,
it's been a
we
couple
live.
moments.
All right,
So
so
man.
we what we gonna do, man? Let's talk about the last subject, man. We're talking about debt. All right, this
Ooh.
is something that you need to be talking about. Like I said, this was
Yes.
supposed to be part of last week's 4 questions that we
Yeah.
only got to ask one. Um, but talking about current debt,
Yeah.
this most definitely needs to be part of your conversation before you get married, because once you become one, that stuff becomes yours. And I'm sure legally there are things you can do to not accept it as yours and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like we can even talk about like prenups and stuff like that and all that. But
Right.
when you think about debts, there are a couple of things, a couple of debts that you I want to make sure that you're asking specifically. So when we talk about debt, of course, we talk about money that you owe back to
Mhm.
somebody, right? Everybody understands what that is. And then some debts that I think will come into marriage is just naturally that you need to talk about is first student loans. I think almost everybody has that,
Right.
right? Um, and then maybe you have like car notes, maybe you have stuff like that. Do you have your consumer debt, right? You have your credit cards and different things like that. Maybe other stuff that you bought. Maybe you get a credit card to get a discount every time you go to Best Buy or Dillard to something like that. You just got all of just crazy just credit card stuff out like that. And then
Yeah.
another one going into marriage that might be a real one is like mortgages, right? If you
Yeah.
got a house or something like that, hopefully you're making that decision together.
Right.
if you're moving in with each other after you get married, man. But all those different types of debts, man, it needs to be part of the conversation because, like we talked about before, man, when that money get funny and the change get a little strange, man, like this stuff is gonna press, right? And this is stuff that they ain't gonna be like, oh well, you can just pay it off later. Of course, student loan stuff, they had that for a little bit, but we having to start paying that stuff back now, right?
I'm gonna do so
But
many deferments.
right. But when we think about debt, man, how important do you say that is to talk about as they're moving towards marriage, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the one things, the one leading causes, for divorce, if we're talking about money. And I think the problem usually is tied around debt and income, and there's not enough income to pay the debt. Therefore, you having struggles financially. Therefore, you're having struggles as you talk through and try to navigate that space. So, I mean, I think that highly important on the front end. It's vital, actually. Like we can't get married and not talk about debt and money. Like
All right.
it's just got to be something that we get into. And I need it allocated. I need the spreadsheet. You know what I mean? And I think you got to take it to that degree because it's like you want to know what you're getting into,
Right.
and even how your spouse views, those debts. Because that's the
Mhm.
thing. You got one spouse that's a spender, one spouse that's the saver, one spouse that wants to kill the credit card debt, another spouse that's like, we still got available credit. It's like, well, it's not you. The interest is kicking you. You need
Right.
to do something about this. You don't need to just let this just sit.
Right.
And I
Right.
think those are still conversations that me and my wife have where when we're trying to come up with a game plan for how we're going to tackle our finances and our budgeting piece, my mind always goes toward I don't want any looming debt. So I want to kill it all. And then she's like, well, all we got to do is pay the minimum payment. And I'm like, well, if you pay the minimum payment, you end up paying more in the long run. It just don't make sense. The $25 payments ain't doing nothing
Right.
toward principal. It ain't even killing the interest. Like
Right.
you just doing enough to get by.
To
And
avoid a late fee.
yeah, and it's like, nah, you don't want to do that. And then if we do use our credit card, like, what are we going to use it on? Like, we need to agree. So it's just a lot of moving pieces that impact both of you. And then you start talking about kids too, as well, and yeah, it can be messy. So you want to tackle that thing way before you walking down the aisle.
Yeah. I think too, man. Like I said, debt, I think is part of how we do life, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's a difference between like good debt and bad debt.
Yes.
Like I
Yes.
said, some people, man, in order to just make it through school, you got to have student loans, man. Some people were fortunate enough to maybe have parents who saved up or whatever, but most people, man, you got those student loans. So realistically, that's probably going to be 90% of marriages having to bring that in from both sides, right? Like
Yeah.
from the husband and the wife. So having that in the budget, and then also making sure that you're not making just like stupid debt, right?
Right.
Um, that you're not just out balling out, man. I had a friend, man, uh, really an associate who was in college, man. He was one of the guys. I was an RA in the dorm,
Yeah.
and so part of my responsibilities as an RA is to do room checks, right? Make sure everybody's room's clean, make sure nobody's like doing anything crazy. And so this dude, man, you walk into his room, and he had a device for every purpose, right? So homeboy had like a PlayStation, right? And then he had like a DVD player, Blu-ray player, and
That's
then he
crazy.
had like a stereo system, and then he had a TV, and then he had this, and that. So everything, like the PlayStation could have accomplished everything. You could have Blu-ray player,
Right. That's what I
yeah,
was
you could play music, stuff
thinking.
like that, whatever. But his thing was just like, yo, I think he was like, he's gonna be a doctor or whatever. So this is like, I'm gonna just get these student loans, I'm gonna get it, and I'm gonna ball out, and I'm gonna just buy everything, right? He had all this kind of stuff, man. And I just always remember, like, that doesn't seem like the best way
Not at all. Not
to
at
to
all.
do that, right?
Yeah.
Just because you can get out that much for student loans, should you? And
Yeah.
but it wasn't none of my business. I just remember thinking like, golly, bro, that just does not seem wise. And maybe he made it big, and was able to pay off that student debt quickly because he was a specialist doctor. I don't know, maybe it would just work for him, right?
That's
But for
hilarious.
me, I'm just
Yeah,
like, I just don't know, man. And my wife and I, man, we were very strategic with certain things that we did. Of course, we made mistakes with
yeah,
things that we purchased that we probably shouldn't have, man, but we didn't do it again. Right. Like we knew, like, oh man, once we pay this off, once that
yeah.
zero balance gets to zero, we both agree
Out
like
of
it
there.
don't stay there unless, like, for credit cards, like, unless it's an emergency. Unless it's an
Yeah,
emergency, we ain't swiping that bad boy. And our goal is to have, a certain amount in the savings account, the rainy day funds, and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff. So we ain't even got to touch the credit card. Like, if we using a credit card, something wrong,
Right,
something
right, right.
real wrong. And we praying that they'll never get there. But like, we gonna drain that savings before we swipe that credit card. But
What's
all that's
wild
gonna
though,
do. Go
my
ahead.
bad, bro. I was just gonna
No,
say what's wild about the student loan thing and taking out the max. I've done it multiple times, and you a college student, so you trying to splurge, and I can't tell you the last thing that I bought with that money. I forgot all of that. Like I and lost all of it. Don't even have it to this day. Like thousands of dollars that I spent on random things that I can't even find today. And it's like, was it really worth it? Now
mm,
I'm having to pay it back and pay it back with interest. It's like,
yeah,
nah. And you want to know if somebody just splurging on stuff, random stuff. It was like, I'm married to you now. That random
right.
stuff has become my random stuff that we can't even find no more. Like, come
That
on,
thing
man.
broke 2 years ago, bro.
This
Like,
thing
what?
broke 2 years ago before we even
Yeah,
started talking, and it's
yeah,
gone now. But
yeah,
yeah, bro, I think that's good. And the whole credit card thing, it's just like rainy day funds, different things like that, investments. So the good debt too, like
yeah. My
you
wife
know,
loves student loans, by the way, if y'all were wondering.
man, jeez, they
She loves
trash,
them.
they trash. I
Hate them
remember,
things, bro.
bro. I remember when me and my wife were dating. She had this Honda Accord, and she called. Dang, what was that thing called? Was it Grace? Nah, it wasn't Grace. It was a hoopty. I mean, it was trash. I mean,
Mhm.
had cuss words scratched in it. Somebody random keyed it, and it was bad. It was in bad shape. It finally it was on its last leg. One day it just wouldn't go anymore. So she ends up in car shopping. Now I think she started working now, so she had a career job. So she making a little bit more money working for Pine Belt. Shout out to the people that know about Pine Belt mental health.
Yeah.
They probably not working there anymore because it's high turnover, trash. I mean, well, if you work for Palm Belt and you're not trash. Anyways, a lot of people have had a hard time, and my wife was one of those people. That's just my personal experience. Might
Yeah.
not be your personal experience with it, but she was car shopping, and I remember Grace. We got the car today, uh, 2011 Toyota Camry, and I was like, "This is nice." It was nice at the time. It was 2011, I think. I'm
Yeah.
like, "This is new, but you don't need this." And this was before we got married. I'm like, and I'm gonna end up accruing these payments. Like, so man, I tried to go out of my way to convince her not to do it, but we weren't married at the time, so it's just like, all right, nah. But luckily, I mean, she paid it. It was a struggle, but she paid that thing off, and it was just like I wanted to be like, I told you so, but you can't do that. That's another thing that you learn in marriage. It's
Right, right,
not
right.
it's not healthy
Yeah.
to tell your spouse, I told you so, even though you were right. And I ain't right most of the
Right.
time.
Right. It ain't healthy for your well being
It
to
ain't
say
healthy for your women.
it's unnecessary, man.
You
It's
ain't
just,
gonna be
even
able to
if
sleep at
it
night.
was right. Right. Just let it go. Let it go, man.
Just let it go.
And so, man, yeah, as we wrap up, dude, I would say, like I said, we've had conversations on this podcast about money. And so we're
Yep.
not going to dive too deep into that, man. We have episode with Van Jones that we did
Shout out.
a couple months ago. So go back and look at that if you want more details about some plans and
Yeah.
different things you want or whatever. But man, I would say just as we wrap up this section and wrap up this episode, man, is that you want to just make sure y'all are on the same page about everything financially. And if you have the privilege of watching this video before you get married and y'all are having a chance to have those conversations and be real about it, like, y'all get out the money, right? Get it
Yeah.
out. Put it
Yeah.
on a spreadsheet, spread it out on the table, man. And I would encourage you to do everything you can to kill that debt up front, right? Because naturally, just life is gonna just
Life.
it's just life is gonna life, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna find yourself in debt, you're gonna find yourself spending more money than you wanted to. And so if you have the means now, right? Go ahead, knock out that debt. I tell you, man, me and my wife will sit back and we'll think about like how much money we used to make back in the day and versus how much we make now. It's like, man, it seemed like we just had more money back in the day, right? It wasn't that, it was just we just had less bills.
Yeah, facts.
And so just
Facts.
thinking about all that kind of stuff, man. Just being smart with your money, man, being aware of that, keeping your eye on it. That way, I'm telling you, it's going, like I said, it's part of the marriage problems and stuff like that when the money funny and all that, man. So, dude, anything else you got to add?
Be
Anything?
the lender. Be the lender, not the borrower.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Make
get rid
sure.
of that
Yeah.
debt. Get rid of that
Yeah.
debt quick.
Yeah, I think
Quick as
that the
shit.
sooner the better. The sooner the better that you can deal with that, the better off you'll be when you know, join and you unite with your wife or your spouse, your significant other. Yeah, man. So I mean, hey, do the work. Do the work today because you'll
I would
appreciate it later.
I would say this. I would say debt is not your friend, right? Of course, you
Come
have
on.
the good debt, right? You
Yeah.
have the house and stuff like that. And like I said, you can talk to a financial person. We're not financial gurus at all, right? So make sure that you do that. But you
Yeah.
know the debt that's unnecessary, right? You know
Yeah.
the stuff that you didn't need that, but you bought it because you wanted it. So you
Yeah.
know the difference, man. But find somebody, man, who know more than you, get some advice, and then to make sure my mom was saying they wish they had an education about the finances and stuff
Hey,
when they were
that's real.
young. So
That's
there you
real.
go. And they've been married for
Yeah.
almost 40, 50 years. I don't know how long,
Wow.
but
Wow.
there it
Wow.
is, man.
Yeah.
All right, man. But thank y'all for tuning in to this episode of the Man to Man podcast. Like I said, we're
Yeah.
all about helping men honor God in every single part of their lives. And so if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed. We're going to go back to doing this every other week. We did 3 or 4 weeks in a row. And so we're
We
going to go
made it,
back to
baby.
doing every other week. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we will be
Yes,
in the
sir.
same room.
In
And so
session.
we'll be in the
Yes, sir.
studio. We'll do a live thing and we'll have y'all tuned in for that. But we'll see how that goes. But we won't be back next week, but the week after we'll be doing that. And so just make sure you stay tuned. If you're on the Facebook group, if you're listening to this on the podcast or whatever, man, just make sure you're connected and doing everything you can to make sure you stay updated for that, man. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all, man. Y'all have a blessed weekend. Peace.